Hey everyone, Savannah here, and today's sketch is all about desk aesthetics. We're drawing a cute pencil holder in Procreate. I'm using my free brush set. You can also grab the template and color palette, all of which are linked in the description down below. Let's go ahead and jump right in. The very first thing we're going to do is change that background color, so click into layers, select background color, and in the palette section, scroll up until you find the pencil holder color palette, and we're going to select this very beautiful blue. This color palette I do provide for you. You can find that in the description down below, but we're going to start adding in some basic colors for these different shapes. So I'm going to start with the scissors. We'll add in some pencils, some sticky notes. We'll add in details too towards the end, but for this, for the scissors, we're going to use a dark cyan color, and that is also in the color palette. So click into the color palette, grab that dark cyan color. We're going to use the circle brush for this, and like I said, on a new layer, we're going to start filling in the shape of the scissors here. I also, you might have noticed, turn the opacity down on the outline layer. That's just so that I can see where I need to place these lines. It's a little cluttered in this drawing because there's a lot of different pieces here. So if you want to turn that opacity layer down, you definitely can do that. You just click the layer that you want to turn the opacity down, and it'll pull up the opacity slider, and you can turn that down. But for now, we're just going to fill in the scissors here, and then we'll keep adding in some of the other shapes of the objects that are in this pencil holder. Now with that filled in, you can turn the outline layer off like I'm doing here, just so I can see if there's any gaps or holes in the areas that I filled in. Once you have it filled in, you can set it to alpha lock now. Like I mentioned, we will add details in a second. So let's go ahead and add a new layer. Grab the orange color. We're going to add a ruler here. Again, we'll add details towards the end, but we're just going to add in this orange color really quickly, and then we'll move on to other sections. So we have pencils here, we have sticky notes. I'm adding in some sticky notes here to the holder. Don't worry about going outside the lines on the bottom because that is going to be covered up with the actual pencil holder. So just start filling in some of these different colors here. We will add details in a little while. I just am blocking out these colors because I want to see visually where I need to place certain colors so that there's not a lot of overlap. I'm using a lot of similar colors here, particularly with the sticky notes and the pencils or color pencils or whatever you want to call those. They are using the same colors, and so I want to make sure that I don't have anything that's touching against each other because I really want them to stand out apart from each other. So that's why I'm kind of just blocking in these colors before I start adding in some details so I can see where I need to place them. Now with a new layer below the scissors layer, we're gonna actually add in a piece of paper here. And I was gonna do one of the colors from the color palette, but I ended up doing one that's a little bit more white. So I just went to the disc section in the color area and just made it a little bit more white, and then filled that paper in. One thing too, I didn't end up doing in the drawing, but you can definitely do that if you want to, is because it's a piece of paper, you can add writing on it. You can add notes to it if you want. I kept it plain just because I was thinking, if it's something in pencil holder, maybe something you want to grab and write on. You haven't written on it yet, but if you want to add some writing on it, you definitely can. Now let's go ahead and add in the pencils or the colored pencils here. And like I mentioned, I did use a lot of the same colors of the sticky notes, and so I'm going to grab some of those colors. I'm going to start with pink. And on a new layer, I'm going to fill in some of these shapes. So as you can see in the bottom left of the picture that's overlaid over top of this, I did two pink pencils on the right and one on the left side. So I'm going to fill those colors in. And then I'm going to use some of the other colors for the other pencil here. So a yellow pencil, a green pencil, things like that. I'm just going to add in here and then add details to that in a second. And you can put all these color pencils on the same page. You can put them on different layers if you want to. Just be mindful of your placement. So I have the color pencil on the left in front of the paper and the ruler. The color pencils on the right are behind the sticky notes. So you just want to make sure layering wise, you have them where you want them to be. Another reason you might want to do them on separate layers is when we go to add details, especially the ones that overlap. If you have any that do overlap, it will be easier if they're on separate layers when you add details, because otherwise they'll blend into each other, or it'll be a little bit harder for you to blend those into each other. So just make sure that you're mindful of that as well. And then you can go through and alpha lock the layers now if you want to. One thing, so I did end up alpha locking the color pencils, but there's still a few more details I need to add. So don't alpha lock those like I did here. I'll uncheck them here in a second. But we have a few more details to add, and so make sure those are not set to alpha lock. The other ones you can. But for now, let's go ahead and add a new layer, make that above all of the other layers that we just added. And we're going to do the pencil holder. So just go ahead and pick one of the colors that I'm going to use, like this yellowish color. You can use that color. You can use a darker color if you want to start with the darker color first. But we're going to just outline and fill the shape in first. And then I am going to create the behind area here of the pencil holder. So I'd move that below all the other objects that are inside that pencil holder. And then we can fill in, go back and fill in the main shape here on that first layer that we created. And now once that's filled in on a new layer, we're going to start doing the sticky notes here on the bottom left. So these I did on separate layers. So there's four different sticky notes here on the left. I did each four of those on separate layers because again, they're going to have details. We're going to add a little bit of coloring to them. It's just easier if you have them on separate layers versus if you had them all on the same layer, you have to be careful with the edges. So just do new layers again, being mindful of where the layers are and in relation to each other. So the way that they stack these or the layers, how you can think about them in Procreate is the higher up in the list. When you click into your layers on the right, the higher up in the list, the more on top of everything else it is. The further down it is, it's going to be more behind everything. So like I said, as you're working through the sticky notes, so this one here, this yellow color, it's on the top of the pink one. So in the stack, when you click into layers, it should be above the pink, which it is here. So you see layer 12 is that yellow sticky note. It's above layer 11, which is that pink one. So as we're adding in these other ones, this green sticky note is also above the pink one, but the one below it, I think I'd use pink for that as well. That one is going to be below the green. You can put that in front of the other pink as well. But again, just be mindful of your layers and where they are in relation to each other. And you might have noticed that I do straight lines here. In Procreate, if you drag your pencil across to create that line and just hold your pencil on the screen for a second, it will snap that line to be straight. I don't draw straight lines that well, so it's a very helpful trick that I use for doing straight lines. I don't always use it for everything, but when I do need a straight line, it's very helpful to have. And now for these color pencils, I'm picking that lighter color in the color palette that's next to the main color we used here. to do the tops of them. So I'm just adding that in. I kept the objects here very simplistic. I didn't want a lot of details in this overall drawing. I want to kind of have this be a little bit of a quicker sketch, something that you can do easily when you have free time. I know it's very hard to get free time. I am a parent to two children, 2 and under, so it's hard to find a lot of free time. And so that's why I wanted to do some of these that are a little bit faster. So maybe if you just want to try and get a little bit of you time and get some sketching in, you can do this very quickly and pick it up pretty quickly. So this one is just gonna be a pretty quick sketch. And so that's why I kept the objects pretty simplistic so that you can just go through this as quickly or as slowly as you want to. So now we have the basic shapes. We're going to start adding in the highlights and shadows and details into this. So I'm going to work on the pencil holder first. I'm grabbing that dark green color and that circle blend brush. I'm going to start adding in that color. Now, one thing again, make sure that you have it set to alpha lock. Otherwise, you're going to, like I just did here, color outside those lines, and we don't want that. We want that color to be within the shape of the object that we created, and that's what alpha lock does. So when you turn alpha lock on, you'll see when I get to the edge, it's stopping at the edge of the object that we're coloring in, is not going outside those lines. I'm using this, like I mentioned, circle blend brush. It's very nice to use because it is pressure sensitive, so you can add as much or as little pigment as you want, but it just blends really nicely amongst these colors. So I'm adding in a couple different colors here, blending it from dark to light, from right to left, because I'm going to have a light source, as you can see in the bottom left image. I'm going to have a light source coming in from that kind of top left area. So I want this area to the right to be darker than the area to the left. The other thing that I'm doing that you see here is I'm grabbing colors after I've blended out these colors a little bit. I'm grabbing those in between colors and blending it out even further. So to grab those in between colors, you just hold your finger down on the color that you want to select. Procreate will select that color, and you'll notice in the top right if that color is selected correctly because it will be there in that color picker. And then you can use that color to blend it out. It just blends it so much more nicely. As you can see, it was very quick for me to blend from this very dark greenish gray color to that very bright yellow color because of the blendability of this brush. And now I'm going to work on the sticky notes. So I did the sticky notes in the darker color of the two that's listed there. So I'm going to grab the lighter color, that circle blend brush, and I'm going to put the light color on the top here. Again, being mindful of where that light source is coming from. It's coming from that top left area. So the surface of the sticky notes will be lighter than the sides because the sides are going to be covered in that shadow. So I'm going to do that with the sticky notes, and then I will pull in a darker color so I don't have it in the color wheel. So I'm going to grab the yellow color that we use for the main sticky note, filling it in, and then go to disk and grab a color that's slightly darker than the yellow that we used so that we were adding a little bit of contrast. I'm going to do this for all the sticky notes. So I'm going to grab the pink here, the light pink color, add that to the top. I'm going to go to the disk, grab a darker version of this pink, and put that along the edge. And I'm going to keep doing that for all these other sticky notes that we have here on the ground. And I wanted to use the circle blend brush for this because I still want to pull a little bit of that original pink and yellow and green and orange color back into the sticky notes. I didn't want it to be so bright. I still wanted a little bit of that original color. So that's why I use the blend brush, because it does still keep that original color. If you press a little bit harder or covered it a little bit more, then it will go to that newer color. So it would be that brighter color that we selected, but because I'm just kind of lightly going over the surface, it's still pulling up that bottom color that we have. And now we are done with those sticky notes. So I'm going to move up to the objects that are in the pencil holder. One thing I know is I actually drew outside lines here on the back side of the pencil holder because I did not set it to alpha lock when I was adding in the color. So I just fixed that really quickly. But now we're going to move on and add in details to the items that are in the pencil holder. So we're going to work on the sticky notes similar to what we did on the ground to the left, adding in the lighter color on the left side and the darker color on the right. And now let's go ahead and add coloring to the scissors here. We went with a really dark color originally, so we're going to lighten it up a little bit, especially on the left side where that light's hitting. So I'm just adding in color. I'm not blending it too much yet because I'm just going to keep adding this color. So I have that medium cyan blue color. I have this lighter cyan blue color, and I'm just adding it a little bit to the left. And then I'm just going to keep taking those colors and blending it out. And you'll see that I do this a lot in my videos. I just keep going back and forth between these colors to blend them out until they look how I want. It's, a lot of steps somewhat, but it does look really good in the end. And I tend to be somewhat of a perfectionist, so I might be doing this maybe a little bit longer than I should be, but I just like to go over it a couple times because every time you do that, it does look a little bit different whenever you add the new color on top. And I keep going until it looks how I want it to look, until it looks like how I envisioned this to look. And now I'm going to work on the ruler. So I grabbed a slightly darker orange color just to give a little bit of texture. And then I went a little bit darker than that and dropped the pencil size down or the pen size down to make these little markings. They're not ruler accurate by any means, but it gives you the sense that it is a ruler. Now let's go ahead and make sure we alpha lock the layer with the paper. And we're going to add a little bit of texture there. So I grabbed that white color. It went a little bit more gray. I'm just going to add some texture to it. I'm not being too perfect with it. I just want to give it a little bit of variation so it's not just a white, stark sheet of paper back there. Now with the color pencils, I kept it very simple. I went and grabbed the colors, so that pink color, and then I went to that color wheel and grabbed a slightly darker version of it to just give it some variation texture. So I'm going to do that with all the colors here. Again, make sure these layers are set to alpha lock, otherwise you'll be drawing outside of them. But I wanted to give a little bit of shadow, a little bit of texture, so that's why I'm pulling in a slightly darker version to add that texture to the main pencil here. And then you can actually use for the tops of the color pencils, you can actually use the original color that we have for the main section here. You can use that color to add the shadows on the top part. So that's what I did for the tips of these color pencils. Just use that original color and added that in, and then we will be close to being done. I'll show you one more thing that I added here after we get these color pencils done. Now we're going to add a surface that the pencil holder is resting on. So we're going to use that cyan blue color that's in the top row of the color palette. Add a new layer and bring it below everything else. And then we're going to just fill this in. I use the square blend brush for this. I wanted to do the blend because I still want to pull a little bit of the background color in and it still gets a little bit of texture without a lot of work. Then I'm going to add the sunshine or that light coming in. So I'm grabbing that light grayish yellow color using the square brush, not the square blend, but the regular square brush. I'm just going to add light. So on the outline layer, I did kind of add where the light would be coming in from. So I'm doing the surface of the post-it note here. I'm doing the side of the pencil holder here, and then the bottom part underneath the pencil holder. I'm going to add a little bit of this light as well, and a few markings here and there on the colored pencils. And then we will do a certain blend mode on it, and then potentially a Gaussian blur if we like the look of that. But I did switch over here to the circle brush so I can go in a little bit on the smaller area. So like I mentioned, I did the side of the pencils here, just the ones that are closest to where that light is coming from, because as you move further to the right, they might not be, hitting the sun. So I wanted to just add a little bit here and there in spots that are closer to the left side before we do the different blend modes. And before we do the blend mode, just make sure the shape is looking how you want it to look before we do blend and before we do the Gaussian blur. Now I'm happy with that, so let's go ahead and do a blend mode. To do that, go to layers and click the N, and then you can scroll up. There's a lot of different blend modes. If you go higher up, that's good for shadows. If you go lower down, that's good for highlights. I end up choosing overlay and then turning the opacity layer down just a little bit before I hit this with a Gaussian blur. I like overlay a lot. I use that a lot in situations, but there's a bunch of different options you can use for this as well. So play around with it, have fun. But now we are finished with this drawing. Thank you so much for sketching along with me today. I hope you had as much fun as I did. If you enjoyed this, please like, subscribe, and also leave a comment sharing your favorite desk accessory. I'll look forward to seeing everybody in the next video.